She lost her job for doing the right thing. He lost his dignity at the hands of bullies. But what no one knew was the man she defended was far more powerful than anyone could imagine. Olivia had seen a lot of things working at Maple Diner. Rude customers, bad tips, managers who cared more about profits than people. But what she saw that night made her blood boil. At a corner booth, an elderly black man sat quietly, eating his soup, minding his own business. He looked tired, his wrinkled hand shaking slightly as he lifted his spoon. Then they walked in. 3 teenage boys, cocky and loud, taking a booth nearby. At first, they just whispered and laughed, throwing glances at the old man. But soon, the whispers turned into mocking comments. "Need a bib, old man?" one of them sneered. "Don't spill your soup, Grandpa," another chuckled. Olivia clenched her fists as she passed their table. This wasn't just teasing, it was cruel. She shot them a warning glance, but they didn't stop. In fact, they got louder. One of them kicked the man's cane out from under the table. It clattered to the floor. That was it. Olivia marched over before anyone else could react. "Hey," she snapped, "you think that's funny?" The teens smirked. One of them, the tallest, shrugged. "Relax, lady, we're just having fun." Olivia's voice hardened. "No, you're being punks. Pick up his cane, apologize, now." The boys snickered. "Or what?" Before Olivia could answer, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Or you'll be dealing with me." Everyone turned. The diner manager, Rick, was storming toward them. But instead of looking at the teens, he was glaring at Olivia. Her stomach dropped. She knew that look. "Olivia," Rick snapped. "What do you think you're doing?" She blinked. She gestured toward the old man. "I was just..." Rick's jaw tightened. "They're paying customers. You don't get to tell them what to do." Her hands balled into fists. "Seriously? They're harassing him." Rick scoffed. "That's not your problem. Your job is to serve food, not play hero." The teens grinned, loving the show. Olivia felt sick. Was this really happening? Rick crossed his arms. "You want to argue? Fine. You're fired." The diner went dead silent. The elderly man looked up sharply. "Now, hold on." "No," Rick snapped. "She's done here." He turned back to Olivia. "Hand in your apron and get out." Olivia's heart sank. Fired, just like that. She had stood up for someone who needed help, and now she had nothing. She took off her apron, hands shaking, and placed it on the counter. The elderly man watched her the whole time, his eyes unreadable. She turned to leave, humiliated, angry, and completely lost. But what she didn't know? That man wasn't just anyone. And the next day, when a black limousine pulled up in front of her tiny apartment, everything changed. The morning sun barely peeked through Olivia's thin curtains when the sound of a car engine outside made her freeze. She wasn't expecting anyone. She didn't even have a job anymore. Slowly, she walked to her window and pulled back the curtain. Her breath caught. A sleek black limousine was parked in front of her rundown apartment complex, the kind of car only the rich and powerful used. Her heart pounded. What was going on? Before she could process it, the back door opened and a sharply dressed man in a dark suit stepped out. He looked around before spotting her and giving a slight nod. Then, to her shock, the elderly man from the diner stepped out after him. Olivia stumbled back from the window. Why was he here? A knock on her door made her jump. She hesitated before opening it, and there he was. The same man she had defended, but today he looked different. Gone were the worn-out clothes. He now wore a tailored suit, a gold watch peeking from his sleeve. She barely found her voice. What are you doing here?" The old man gave her a warm smile. "May I come in?" Still stunned, Olivia nodded and stepped aside. He walked in slowly, looking around at the tiny apartment, the peeling wallpaper, the stacks of unpaid bills on the counter. Finally, he turned to her. "I never got to introduce myself properly," he said, extending his hand. "My name is William Lancaster." Olivia froze. That name, she knew that name. William Lancaster wasn't just some old man eating soup at a diner. He was one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. Her mouth went dry. "You're the William Lancaster?" He chuckled. "I was hoping you wouldn't recognize me right away." She shook her head, overwhelmed. "Why are you here?" His smile faded slightly. "Because I owe you a debt of gratitude, Olivia." She swallowed hard. "For what?" He sighed. "For something that very few people in this world still have. Kindness." Olivia felt her throat tighten. "I just did what was right." William nodded. "And you paid the price for it." His voice turned firm. "That should have never happened." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a check, a thick one, with Olivia's name on it. Her stomach dropped. "What is this?" "Your second chance," William said simply. "I want to offer you something better." Olivia's mind spun. This had to be a dream. A man like him didn't show up at the door of a Waitress. I don't understand," she admitted. "You don't even know me." William's expression softened. "I know enough." He took a step closer. "I know that when no one else in that diner cared, you stood up for me. Not because you wanted anything, not because you knew who I was, but because it was the right thing to do." His eyes met hers. "And I need more people like you in my life." Olivia's breath hitched. "What are you offering?" William smiled. "A job," he said, "a real one, one that will change your life forever." She stared at him, heart racing. A billionaire was standing in her tiny apartment, offering her a future she never imagined. And she had no idea what to say. Olivia stared at the check in William Lancaster's hand, her mind spinning. This couldn't be real. She had spent the last 24 hours thinking she had hit rock bottom, fired, humiliated, unsure of how she was going to pay rent. And now, a billionaire was standing in her living room, offering her a second chance. Her voice came out unsteady. "What kind of job?" William smiled. "One where your kindness won't go unnoticed." Olivia swallowed hard. "I don't know anything about business." William chuckled. "Good. That means you haven't learned greed or corruption either." He took a slow step forward. "I built my empire from nothing, Olivia, but somewhere along the way I stopped seeing people the way you do. I need someone I can trust, someone who tells the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is." She frowned. "You want me to tell you the truth?" William nodded. "I want you to be my personal advisor." Her breath caught. "You mean like an assistant?" William's eyes twinkled. "Not quite. I have assistants, I have lawyers, I have an entire boardroom full of people who tell me what I want to hear." He tilted his head. "But I need someone who tells me what I need to hear." Olivia's pulse raced. This didn't make sense. "I was a waitress, Mr. Lancaster," she said hesitantly. "I don't belong in your world." William smiled knowingly. "Then maybe my world needs someone like you." Olivia looked down at the check again, the weight of the moment sinking in. This wasn't just a job offer. This was a test. She could walk away, find another diner job, keep her head down. Or she could take a risk. She took a deep breath, lifting her gaze back to his. And then she said the words that would change her life forever. "Okay, I'm in." William grinned. "Good." He gestured toward the door. "Then let's go. Your new life starts now." As Olivia stepped outside the black limousine waiting for her, she knew nothing would ever be the same again.